Ohio. This is Michael, and welcome to my workspace. Okay, so in our last video, we went over lists in Python, and today we'll be covering tuples. So let's begin here. I have VS Code open up. I'm going to go ahead and create a new Python file. I'm going to call this tuple.py. All right, so Python, tuples and lists and later on sets are data structures in Python that are very similar to each other in that they are containers of elements or data, and especially lists and tuples are ordered data. But then there are some big differences between tuples and lists, and the biggest one is that tuples are immutable, which means they cannot be changed, and lists are mutable, which means you can add value, you can remove value, you can change the value of an element, but you can't do that with tuples. And that being said, it makes a tuple lighter and faster. And when I say lighter, it means that the size of a tuple in byte size, the memory that your disk holds for a tuple, is going to be less than what it is for a list. Same thing with it being faster, which means that it takes less time for your computer to create a tuple than it takes a list. And same thing when you iterate through a tuple, it'd be faster to iterate through than a list. And these are significant differences. And if you talk about relative wise, if you have like a data set that a million records, a million elements in there, then these differences of being lighter and faster is a lot more efficient for your program to run when you have tuples. Now, granted, these are immutable. Granted that you don't want your data to change, and that's the time you're going to create a tuple. All right, so enough rambling on. Let's go ahead and show you a couple of examples here. I think it's better to show you if I show you comparing a list against a tuple, and so that you can see the differences. So we know what a list are already, and the way we're just going to go ahead and create a list here. I'm going to call it 2, add some elements in here, and 20. All right, and a tuple example. And we'll create it, so instead of open square brackets, like if we have a list, we can create it with open and closed parentheses. And I'm going to go ahead and add in the same elements that we have for the list example there. This is one way of creating a tuple. There's another way you can do it by doing another tuple. And this time, you don't need to use the open and closed parentheses. You can just go ahead and just type in the elements separated by comma. But this way with the open and closed parentheses is a lot more common. You'll see it in a lot of other people's scripts, and it's just something that's visually easy to pick out from a list or sets even. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. Now, when I said that a list, or let's just find out what the difference is between a list and a tuple. We're going to go ahead and print out the methods and attributes that are part of a list. So I'm going to go ahead and use a print dir and pass in our list variable there. And then I'm going to do the same with passing out a tuple variable there. And we'll see what we get back here. So I'm going to go ahead and print this out. All right, let me make this a little bit bigger here. I'm going to go ahead and separate this to go like this, just so you can see a clear separation of all the attributes. So I'm going to go ahead and do it like that. All right, so we have this dash line now, and it just separates the list attributes and method against the tuples. And let's go ahead and ignore the standard built-in method that comes with a list and tuple, and just look at the regular methods couple of methods that you can perform on a list and a tuple. So the very first one, as you can see here, we have a lot more. When I say ignore the standard built-in methods that comes with a list and tuple, that just means like the one with the double underscore surrounding the method names. So for example, we've seen append before, we've seen the clear method before. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 11 different methods that you can perform on a list. And if you were to compare that to a tuple, you see that we just have two, count and index. Now, as you can see, count and indexing, that's not a method that you can change or add or remove something from a tuple. And that's exactly what a tuple is. You can just you can see it. You can bring up what the value is for an index of a tuple, but you can't change anything like that. You can't even sort it. You can't even resort the elements in a tuple. It's immutable. But we can clearly see that a list, you can do all sorts of things with that to make it mutable, change. Okay, so that's that. Let's go ahead and talk about one other thing here, and that's called unpacking. So unpacking a tuple is quite very important, and it's kind of cool. So what that means is this. Let's go down here. Let me create. Now, again, I used in my example here just numbers for the elements, but again, you can hold different data types, and I'll show you right now. So we're going to create another one. So we're going to say final tuple example is equals to, and I'm going to put in my name here as a string, separate by comma, and I'm going to put in my age, which is 31, and put in my gender, which is male, and lastly, a Boolean value for do I know Python? So true right there. Now, right here we have created a tuple with these elements in there, but and we can go ahead and print it out real quick. Final tuple example, and let me go ahead and comment out this part so make it clear as to what we're printing out. We run the program, and you can see that we return the Michael 31, a male, and then no Python. But these are a tuple, but it doesn't. You can break these up into or unpack them into individual variables, and the way you do that is by doing like something like this. So for the name, I'm going to say name, and so this I'm listing out the names of the variables now. So name, and then age, and then gender, and then finally no Python. And we set these variables equal to that tuple variable that we created, which is final tuple example up here. So we go final tuple example. So just like that, and this is very important. You have to unpack the same number of elements to the same number of variables. So this right now we have 4 variables that's going to be assigned with the value of these 4 elements in here. If you were to have an unequal amount of numbers of either variables or elements, then the program will throw an error. So that's that. I'm going to go ahead and save, and now we want to print this out. Print out. Let's do this. My name is equals to, and then I'll put in the name variable now. So this is what I'm printing out is the literal string, my name, and then after that it's going to say it's going to print out whatever value is in the name variable, which should be Michael. And I'm going to do this a few more times to unpack or to print out the other variables. So my age is equal to age. My gender is equal to gender. And then lastly, nose Python is equal to whatever value is for nose Python variable, which is a Boolean type. And so we're going to save and print this out now. And as you can see here, we have now unpacked these elements into their own variables, and we can then perform different things on this variable, because now we've unpacked them into a variable, and now if I wanted to, technically we can change it now, because it's no longer, it has been unpacked from the tuple. So for example, if I would just say name is equal to the name variable that we have unpacked for is equal to I don't know, Mr. Lee, which is my last name. I'll put a period there, Mr. Lee. I'll save that, and now it prints out name. As you can see, we have now changed, we have unpacked the elements from a tuple into a variable, and then we can then change the variable if we like to. And I clearly changed what name was, which was Michael, to Mr. Lee. Okay, so that's the difference between tuple and list. And in the next video, we'll be covering sets. Okay, thanks, and have a good day.